Hello and good afternoon, everybody. Wherever you're joining us today, YouTube or on LinkedIn, you're very welcome. My name is Martin Crowson. I'm here with the MD of Optimum Derby, Tom Healy. Good afternoon, Tom.
Hello, welcome back. 2024, Martin.
Yeah, Happy New Year to everybody. We're here today to talk about something that affects so many sportsmen and women up and down the country, and hopefully teach you a little bit more about it in the next 10 minutes about whether it may be something you're suffering from, or if you are someone that's used to suffering from this, maybe some ways and some stretches and some exercises to alleviate the problem in the future. And that problem is plantar fasciitis. Tom, what's that?
So at the bottom of your foot, similar to the palm of your hand, from your base of your toes down to your heel, you've got basically a thick structure that runs between the two. So imagine the bottom of your toe through to your heel, you've got this thick structure. It forms a little bit of the arch of your foot, and it helps to contract and hold the foot in a good place, basically.
Okay, and how do people know they've got that and not something else? What sort of pains can they associate with that?
Yeah, so you can either have pain towards the front, so towards where the toes are, so where it attaches towards the toes, and it'll almost like fan out, or you'll have it more towards here where the heel is, and it'll be like a pain in the morning. It might be painful after you've sat down for a long period of time and you've rested, then you try to get going again, and it tends to be either towards the front of the foot by the toes or right down by the heel.
Why is that the case, that it hurts more when you get up in the morning?
Generally just because you've been still all night. So as you've been still and rested, the tissue's contracted and become stiff, maybe thickened a little bit as well through that period of time. And then obviously come to get up in the morning, you've got to try and stretch it out and make it move a little bit. So yeah, first thing in the morning or after a good period of doing nothing, it will be stiffer.
We'll be having a look at a couple of exercises in a few minutes, and perhaps a good opportunity to remind people, if you're not already, if you're watching us on YouTube today and you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty of other videos on the Optimum YouTube channel explaining various different injuries and how to recover from them. Let's get back to plantar fasciitis, Tom. What if I feel like I'm struggling with this? When's the time to go and seek help?
It can be something that grumbles on for ages, Martin. So it could be going on for a long time. I actually saw a lady in the clinic yesterday who was a chef, and she's on her feet all day. So she doesn't really get a massive break. She's on her feet. She wears, doesn't matter what footwear she wears. She changed the footwear. She's got some Doc Martens. She wears trainers. She wears all sorts. Doesn't really make a difference. And she's had the issue, she reckons, for about 18 months-ish.
Wow.
Like, a bit on and off, and it's kind of gradually got worse to the point where she's kind of fed up that she can't go to a gig and stand at a gig, and can't take the dog for a walk. Struggles to, it's just frustrating, just really frustrating. So that took her 18 months. To be honest, if it's anything more than 3 or 4 weeks, I'd start to look to get help on this, because it can just drag on for ages, and it can be something that just takes a long time to then get on top of and progress to getting back to further to function, really. She's also struggling because of it as well. She's also struggling with aches and pains in her lower back and her hips and her shoulders, because she's changed the way she stands on her feet to accommodate, and to get off her or uncomfortable spots in her feet to continue working, basically. So
and is it one of those things that gets better during the day, or a couple of days you find and then it gets worse again? Is it, that's why it's difficult to know when to go and get some treatment for it?
Yeah, absolutely. You might have 2 or 3 days off of whatever the aggravating activity may be, and be absolutely fine. But as soon as you kind of return back to that activity, generally speaking, it'll come straight back, because the biomechanics or whatever the underlying issue is hasn't changed. Footwear, you can sometimes change your footwear. It's a short-term gain. As soon as you take those shoes off and you put something else on, it's probably going to come back again. Yeah. So yeah, it's something that can be, you think you might have got rid of it, but actually it will just rear its head again quite quickly.
Let's have a look at a couple of diagrams at this point, Tom, just so you can explain to people a little bit more about it. Start with this one. Over to you there. Probably explain a little bit more about it through that.
Yeah, so
excuse me.
The actual structure itself. So the plantar fascia is an actual structure that runs, as you can see, from the base of your toes towards your heel. And typically plantar fasciitis, which is the inflammatory condition, is where you will get a discomfort or a pain on that red marker towards the heel where the arrow is, or down the front end. And And you can see how this then feeds into the arch of the foot, and you can see how then that feeds and wraps around where the heel bone, the calcaneus, and the arrow there is. The Achilles is the next structure around that corner, the white, thick structure that travels up the leg, the back of the leg. And you can see how those structures are very closely linked. This diagram just kind of stops there, but actually in real life, those two structures would overlap and pass into one another. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Building strength through your calf and building strength through the rest of the chain to absorb the force rather than just accepting it just straight in the foot.
And here is the calf. Just by getting onto that.
Yeah. So just whilst you get a drink, Martin, this one's a picture of the calf muscles. So you've got the gastrocnemius and the soleus, and then the Achilles tendon. So the Achilles tendon is just a thick structure that basically is a non-contractile structure that just stays stiff. And the gastrocnemius and the soleus contract and cause the toes to point. But these two muscles here are real key, and it's not just these two, but these are just two that I've picked out for today. Focus down onto the foot and help to absorb the force through the walking gait pattern into the back of the leg, and then transfer the force through the body. At this stage, if you're struggling with plantar fasciitis, the possibility is that you're not accepting the force well enough through the rest of the chain, and therefore the bottom of the foot is taking a lot of the weight and a lot of the contribution to your gait pattern, rather than being able to transfer that force through the rest of the leg and the body.
Okay, so that's interesting. So we're starting to look at the actual biomechanics of where it happens. If someone's come to you and you've diagnosed them with plantar fasciitis, what can you tell them to do exercise-wise to not only get better, but then maybe after they've recovered from it, do exercises to stop it inflaming or reoccurring again?
Yeah, absolutely. And it obviously goes through you go through a progression of exercises from easy through to sort of much harder and challenging ones, but some real simple ones to begin with. Calf raises. So to target both muscles in your calf, you're going to need to do calf raises with a bent knee and then a straight leg. So the two muscles there, you've got gastrocnemius and soleus. One works when the leg's straight, one works when the knee's bent. So you're going to need to target.
So just both. Sitting down and standing up, doing it both times.
Let me show you. I'll show you this.
Okay.
How well I can get that. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so you can do it straight leg.
Yeah.
So like that.
Yeah, hold at the top for a little while, a couple of seconds there.
Pause at the top, just to kind of hold and keep that nice and still at the top, just a second or two.
Yeah.
And then do the same thing, but with a slightly bent knee. So get your knees into there, a bit of a squat, and keep the knees bent and come up and down.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's more soleus. The first one, more gastrocnemius. And
always keeping the toes and the ball of the foot on the floor while you're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So toes and the ball of the foot stay fixed to the floor. But they're two real simple ones that you can give a go straight away. And that necessarily won't make a difference overnight. Don't expect these things to make like a difference straight away. They're going to make a difference over a period of time. And plantar fasciitis has come on because there's been micro tears over a long period where the tears are tears. And then all of a sudden you get like a thick block of tissue. And realistically, what you want to do is break that tissue down, but also build the strength in the background as well to stop it continuing to become a problem. So this might take a couple of months to get back to normal.
And like all exercises that you give people, it's important you stick at these ones, isn't it? Else it will just contract again, and it's important to keep working at it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I discussed yesterday with the client in here was that she keeps a diary. So she keeps a diary of sort of how many steps she does a day, how long is she on her feet for before it starts to become a bit of a pain. So she does like 6, 7, 8 hour shifts at work. So is it after 2 hours? Is it after an hour and a half? What is it? And what's the pattern in terms of her pain the following day after maybe doing lots of steps a day before she's gone to visit friends in London, for example, up and down the tube, and 25,000 steps? Is that way out the norm, and therefore the next day she's struggling? And the reason I said that to her to keep that was because going forward, as the exercises progress, hopefully those time periods that she can sustain on her feet before it becomes painful get longer and longer and longer. And that's hard to see sometimes because you're still experiencing pain. So you think, well, it's not really changing much. But in fact, she's able to do 5 hours now before it hurts.
I guess as a therapist trying to get to the bottom of it, it's really useful for you to have these diaries as well as, but when the pain comes on.
Completely, yeah, it's really useful, and like your watch or your phone will do a lot of the steps for you. So that's one job out the way that you don't have to worry about. And then the other one is just kind of keeping a mental note of how long have I been here now before it starts to ache.
Yeah. And just finally, Tom, is there anything, any sports that are particularly susceptible to it? I know you just talk about just someone on a shift at work and struggle from it, but is there any sports where you see people who are particularly vulnerable to plantar fasciitis from what they've been playing?
Runners, and like especially long distance runners, so your marathon guys, or generally people who have had maybe a significant injury, maybe let's say something like an ACL or an Achilles rupture or something lower leg, maybe even a hip injury where they've been off their feet for a while and using crutches.
Yeah.
They then develop some sort of plantar fasciitis where they haven't moved their foot and put weight through it for a long period of time. So that tissue is then contracted. And it's the same sort of thing as we talked about before, sort of getting up in the morning. Why is it so bad? Same sort of thing here. Like if people have been off their feet for such a long period of time, they'll have the same sorts of things develop. So not always in sports, but it's often a byproduct of maybe something else. Yeah.
Okay. Really interesting, Tom. Thanks for that. If you're sitting there watching us today thinking that might be me, you can book in to see Tom on the website, which is details on the bottom of the screen at the moment. If you'd like any more information specifically, you can email Tom on that email address. Otherwise, there's plenty more to find out at the website as well, to find out what services Tom and Optimum offer. There's also plenty more information on our YouTube channel, as I mentioned earlier, so please check that out and subscribe. We've got videos there on all sorts of things, from torn Achilles tendon to concussion and shoulder pain, so please go and have a look there and subscribe. We'll be back here next week for some more Optimum Live. So in the meantime, that just leaves me, Martin Crowson, enough time to say thank you very much, Tom, for joining us today. Have a good week, mate, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, and catch you later.
Me, Martin Crowson, to say thank you very much for joining us today. If you've got any questions, stick them in the comment section below, and Tom will get on to answering them with you some information as soon as possible. Thanks for joining us again, folks. We'll catch you again soon here on Optimum Derby Live. Bye-bye.